Hello, everybody. Oh, we're still starting. Hello, everybody. We are live. I deeply apologize. I forgot to give myself permission to forgot to give myself permission to actually live stream in the group. So, in order to not be too tardy or too late, I am here, and I'm here and I'm live in the group, just streaming it here. The replay will be available, and for those that were planning on joining me live on the Zoom, I do apologize. Hopefully, you are um, finding me here and live, and you're not having any issues. So, I'm going to add again, the title and all of the details later, so that we can so that we can have this in the right space. Hey, Gabriella, thank you for joining. Again, I do apologize that I'm not live in Zoom for everybody to that wanted to have that opportunity to ask me live questions. We will take care of that. At the end, and I will tell you how we can do that if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with me. But for now, also I'm going to ask you to bear with me. So as I ask you questions and things like that, we are streaming live, so there will be a lag. And hey, Karen. So just make sure you give me just a few minutes to answer your questions over there in the chat, okay? So anyway, hi there. Welcome to Relax. It's really you, not them. We are going to be going over those 3 tactics for becoming more relaxed, even when we think other people are the cause of our stress, that I've been sharing with you over the last week or so. And that is releasing the internal pressure to perform, removing others' ability to aggravate you, and knowing how you want to see yourself in all situations. So again, hello. My name is Tricia Parido. For those of you who do not know me, I want to share with you, again, value about all the value that this conversation or this live is about, this free training. But first, I am the CEO of Turning Leaves. I'm also the founder and master coach for all things Turning Leaves, recovery, life, and wellness coaching. But my true mission is to help people experience living the way they desire. So with that, one of the things I do so that I realize this mission is to share quick, valuable tips that help us busy women and men manage our emotions and build mental resilience so that we can handle stress gracefully. And so that's what we're going to do today. Okay. Again, I've already shared with you the best way for us to deal with stress gracefully is to release the internal pressure to perform, remove others' ability to aggravate you, and to know how we want to see ourselves in all situations. So if you're here now, great, in the live, awesome. Keep dropping in those questions or your response to any of the questions that I have. But also, if you are watching the replay, because I know a lot of you and I had a conversation, and it was, I can't make it at that time because it is the middle of the day for some of us. And for the others, it's, in the middle of a work day. So if you're watching the replay, please put hashtag team replay below in the comments, because I always like to see who shows up during what period, right? So along that lines, I also love interaction. It's part of the reason why I'm a little bit off, because I like to see faces on the screen with me, and I love to actually engage in that personal space. So right now it's kind of a bummer that I'm not there on Zoom live. I got to look at why I didn't have permission on my own page to stream live from Zoom. But anyway, so this is also going to be the way that you'll learn most from everything that we're going to go over, right? So be interactive, be engaged, have a piece of paper, a pen, but also be ready in your chat or in the comments to respond, right? It's definitely suggested if you just type that first thing that comes to mind, especially with the lag. You can ask me anything during this live, and I'm going to do my best to either answer it during the video or at the end. So some things might be bigger, right? Like you can type it in, and we can try to get to it during this time, or we will address it either in a direct message conversation, or I'll answer it in the chat later. So the very first question I have for everybody that is here is, who thinks or has ever felt that other people are the cause of your stress? Raise your hand. You can say me. You can say I've been there, whatever it is. But who has ever felt that other people are causing them stress? What about events or situations? Is it the event or the situation that causes your stress? So I want to talk a little bit, right, to bring you into my world and how I kind of came here, right? Because as a child, yep, right? See, there's that lag. Thanks, Gabriella. But as a child, right? As an adolescent, I really felt like whenever my feelings got hurt, right, it was somebody else hurt my feelings. And aggressive drivers on the freeway, right? Like it's there, I would get all derailed and all annoyed, like, how dare you drive this way? Coworkers had a big contribution for me because I really felt like, whenever they wouldn't perform or they wouldn't do their part or what I perceived, right? Like I would be in looking at how they were performing, and it would cause me derail. And it would, I would say, oh, well, so-and-so didn't do this, so I'm stressed out, right? So now I have to pick up their slack. And so I started looking at this when I started dealing with some traumatic events in my life, right? And anybody that has read my story or knows any parts of my journey knows that there have been a lot. So we can talk about, the death of a parent at a really young age. That was a huge traumatic event for me. And then, I had many losses after that of really close friends. And so I was, and then there was a lot of sexual assaults, domestic violence and things like that. So a lot of traumatic events. So when I was diving into that, I really started to realize how much power I gave to other people's actions that happened to infiltrate my world. And so as I was looking at these big things, I'm like, wow, why can't I apply this to some of that smaller stuff? And so I really started to realize, like, wow, I give a lot of my power away to other people that don't see things the same way that I do, that don't have the same values or morals or beliefs or opinions, etc. I allow them to get inside of my soul and make me irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, bothered, and I'm stressed and I'm angry and I'm judging and all of these things. And then it would even go as far as I noticed this in my observation period. There were some, very significant observations that I made. One, I was just shopping and I caught myself going, oh my God, why are they wearing that? Right? And then when I really started to think about it, it's like, wow, you don't have any idea what's going on in that person's life, right? Like, just because it's not something that you would wear, who cares, right? Like, why are you getting into this a modified or adjusted feeling of like, disgust? But then there were the other times where, like, I'd be driving down the freeway and I'd be getting, bothered, and I'd pull up next to somebody and I'd turn and I'd look, and, I'd see somebody that was maybe an elder person, and they were, literally just, maintaining some autonomy in their life and just trying to get to their, doctor's appointment or to the pharmacy or whatever. And it's like, why am I getting so bothered? Why don't I just go around? And the same with people that tailgate and things like that. Like my I would get really annoyed and I'd get really aggressive, and I'd allow this person's demeanor to to adjust me and manipulate me into being, an uglier version of myself. And I'm like, you know what, I don't know what's going on in that person's life. Like, truly, they could be rushing to get to the hospital because their child just got hit by a train. Like, who am I to judge? Like, it's so much easier to just move over. So when we talk about our own situations of how we feel about other people, places, and things causing us stress, it's really not that, right? So, um, we want to take that into consideration, and we want to be having that kind of as a preface, right? Like, ooh, I have got some observing to do, right? So again, if you're watching the replay, please drop in anytime something is resonating, anytime that you can really connect with something, so that we can engage in conversation, in really digging into the why and how you got to this place of being in what I refer to as an external locus of control, where we allow other people, places, and things to manipulate us. Now, I could tell you lots and lots and lots of stories about me and my transition and my transformation, and how I got to where I am today. But I don't think that that's really important, and I don't think that that's why we are here, right? We want to know, like, well, why am I this way, and how do I fix it, or what do I need to change, etc. Right? So let's start with number one, right? Who here, or listening to the replay, has an internal identification, right? Like, can you identify with an internal pressure to perform? That internal thing that says, I must something. I must do, be, or complete something. I should be able to do, be, or complete something. I should understand. I should excel. Because if I don't, other people will think, feel, or believe whatever way about me. Who has an internal pressure to perform that says, I can't fail again. I can't fail this time, and not at this. Right? Maybe drop what yours sounds like in the chat. What is that biggest, most resonating internal pressure to perform tape that plays over and over in your head? Yes, Karen, that is completely true. We cannot always control circumstances, but we can control how we respond. And we'll absolutely get there, right? Karen and I go way back. We have a pretty long-standing relationship, and I love that she's here with us today. So, right, so we have this internal pressure to perform. So where did it come from, right? How much of it, this is some things that we need to start identifying. We need to break things down into categories. How much of my internal pressure to perform comes from me adopting other people's views, opinions, and beliefs? Right? I have clients that it's, they have like this really negative internal dialogue and pressure to perform around what their physical body looks like, their weight, etc. And when we dive in and we get back to the beginning, it's because, let's say, their dad, when they were 10, called somebody fat on the TV set, and the child associated it with the way that their body looks. Plus, that same father always would say things like, you don't need to eat all of that. Do you really need more, et cetera, right? So that internal pressure to look a certain way to yourself in the mirror is actually your adoption of somebody else's views and opinions of whatever that is, right? So we want to look at that category. How much of this comes from somebody else's views and opinions, their input? Where did I adopt their message, right? And then where does it come from me playing the comparison game, right? Because we all do that. Why am I not as successful? Why, why can't I have what that person has? Or why am I not in that social circle? Why have I not been invited into this group of people? And on and on and on, right? Like, where is that internal pressure to perform coming from, and where did it begin, right? So let's talk about stress and what it really is, right? So how do you define, oh, that's something you need to work on, the daily pressure. Okay, Karen, hopefully we'll give you some very great things that will actually add to your already dedicated self growth journey. But stress, how do you define stress? What does it equate to you? The way that I look at it, and you can agree or disagree, maybe you have something else, but to me, stress equals a disappointment. Think about it, right? Something didn't get done. Something isn't right. I don't know how to do something, right? So it's a disappointment. Perhaps you could agree with that. Or stress equates to something else for you. What about overwhelm? What does overwhelm equate to you? I see overwhelm as a whiteout, right? Like it's just a complete whiteout, only it's a really noisy one, right? Think about that one. Like it's just this big, everything gets whited out, voided over, like blanked out. We're sitting there frozen, and all that's happening is the noise in our head. Like we are literally can do nothing. We can't see anything. We can't go anywhere. We can't get outside. We can't anything. And really all that's going on is I have to do and be everything to myself and to everybody else. And there's just so much more to this than I even imagined. And oh my gosh, there is not even enough time in the day, right? Wow. Like it's just over and over, and it's just frozen. So when we look at our internal pressure to perform, and we can allow ourselves to see that stress is just an internal personal disappointment and the overwhelm that we're allowing to overshadow our life or blank things out or cause us to isolate, shut down, avoid, whatever it is, right? Like I was just talking with somebody this morning who said, you know what, when I get overwhelmed and I'm not connected with the task at hand, like I just shut down, I just disappear into Facebook land, right? Like, right, that overwhelm, that whiteout, when we look at that as all an internal pressure to perform, we can see why we get there. We can even see how we get there. But then it's, okay, great. What do I need to do now? Right? How do I stop this? And we'll talk about some tips to start that restructure or the reframe as Karen dropped into the chat, right? Thank you for that acknowledgement. Excuse me, I'm trying to be really cognizant of your guys' time. And for those of you who know me, Karen and Gabrielle, we all know that I could probably stand here and talk to y'all about this for hours. But I want this to be a very useful, specific, very poignant, on topic training that you can, walk away with notes and feel like you can at least make some headway today going forward. So let me ask you, who has ever said the words out loud, "You make me feel"? Right? Thank you for laughing at my funny joke, Karen, because you know me, like I can only show up genuine and authentic. I can't show up any other way. And and I'm sitting here and I'm focusing on notes instead of looking at beautiful faces and engaging. And yes, okay, so yes, we have all said, you make me feel, right? Or, again, back to the driver on the freeway, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So we need to look at how can I remove others' ability to aggravate me. Anna's here. Hi, Anna. If you didn't hear my apology for not being live in Zoom, I forgot to give myself permissions to stream to this very private Facebook group. And so it wouldn't allow me to. So I just hopped in here live, and everybody can just watch the live stream or the replay. Anyway, so if you've ever said, you make me feel, we need to talk about how to remove others' ability to aggravate you, right? So let me ask you this. Maybe this will get us thinking in the right direction. What is easier for any of you that are parents? Is it easier to say yes to your child, or is it easier to say no to your child? Right. So generally speaking, when we find ourselves getting irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, and bothered by our children, right? It's because we've told them no about something and they're ready and prepared with a debate. And we're not ready and prepared to have one with them. And they just want to start having some autonomy in their life to choose what it might look like, right? And we're saying no and, right? So saying yes is always the path of least resistance. And any parenting class will teach you this, right? Like say yes more and say no for the big stuff. So we have to think about this. When we are in a place where other people have the ability to irritate us, agitate us, annoy us, right? Aggravation, get under our skin. We have to look at this. How much am I standing in the stance of needing to be right? Like, can you see yourself digging your heels in whenever there's like a differing view or opinion, or, somebody maybe pushes against what you're asking them to do, or in whatever conversation, right? Like we dig our heels in and we need to be heard. We also judge people that have differing views and opinions or values than we do, right? How much do you get into that stance of a judger? We need to be looking at that. When we say no, they expect a full, detailed, deep dive explanation. When they say no, because is a full and complete answer. Yes, exactly. So, right, but we have to, so if we're digging in our heels and we need to be right, we need to ask ourselves why. Why do we need to be right? Why can't we just be right for ourselves and let it be wrong for somebody else? Why can't it just be okay? Right? That biggest question I always ask people is, you accept your whatever it is, right? Values, opinions, beliefs. Like you accept your own beliefs on this topic. So why is it not okay for that other person to accept their own beliefs on whatever that topic is? It's an interesting concept. So when you see yourself, right, especially in our marriages, our relationships with our kids, with our siblings, our family, right, like there tends to be a lot of headbutting. And believe me, I get it. I have 5 children, 5 adult children, and they're all super different. And you put them all in a room, and just imagine a big Italian family, right, with like a lot of opinions and a lot of passion and a lot of this, right? Everybody's trying to convince and sway and persuade everybody else. And then when they dissipate or whatever, then then we got to hear from each other, each one of them, right? Like why the other person is wrong. They're just dumb. They don't know, right? We're not willing to allow people in society. We're not willing to allow people in our family units. We're not willing to allow our coworkers, whatever category it is that you're struggling with, or all of them, right? We're not willing to allow them to have their own thoughts, views, opinions, beliefs, needs, wants, dreams, desires, aspirations. We want them to want the ones that we want for them, or we want them to buy into ours, or whatever. So when somebody has that thing, it's, oh, you make me feel, right? Like you make me feel stupid. So one of the things I want you to think about, and I'll round this first part out, right? That stance of a judger, right? When we're in the stance of a judger, we are hard, rigid, etc., right? And so when we're hard and rigid, we tend to break a whole lot easier, right? Think of a, like a real brittle piece of something. You go like this, it just snaps, right? Like we just snap. But when we're in a stance of a learner, right? We're in an openness to receive, which then keeps us in our own power, right? Like when we are more willing to seek a deeper level of understanding, right? Doesn't mean we have to change our stance, but if we say, that's an interesting thought, view, or opinion, I wonder if you wouldn't mind helping me understand at a deeper level how you arrived at it, right? Let them talk, validate that you heard them. You don't have to change your opinion, but before you start to tell them yours, make sure that you're not in the stance of a judger, in a place, coming from a place where you want to persuade them to see all the reasons why they're wrong. And we want to be able to say, my opinion's a little bit different. Are you open to hearing a differing opinion or view, right? Now we're having like a real conversation, but everybody has that ability to choose. We can become closed off and just be like, right? No. Or we can be open and accepting. Because if you think about it, you want to have your own values, opinions, and beliefs, and you accept your own. And we want other people to accept ours, so why can't we accept other people's? Now, when somebody says hurtful words to you, right, I know that this gets a little bit more sticky and a little bit more gray. If somebody says, oh my God, you're so dumb, right? Like, sure, that's gonna, right? But if we think about that, like their words, their thoughts, their actions are all about them. That's their perception, their belief, their whatever they want to experience. You don't have to choose to join them. Wow, I'm sorry you think and feel that way. Wow, did you mean for that to be so hurtful? Etc. Right? Like we have to learn, one, the appropriate way to respond so that we're letting people know, like, hey, like this isn't an okay exchange for me. But also to help highlight for them, like, let's give them some social cues. Anyway, there's a whole deep dive that we go into with this. There is a way to remove other people's ability to aggravate you, hurt your feelings, penetrate your soul in a negative way, and still be able to keep them in your life and have a beautiful relationship, right? So we just got to work on the nuances of which filter do I want to listen through? What lens do I want to see through? What tone of voice do I want to use? If I'm reading a text, right? If I'm reading somebody's text message, I'm actually I'm choosing which tone of voice I want to use to read that. So if it could go to negative or positive or something in between, sometimes we have to actually seek deeper understanding. Anyway, so we really have to watch that, right? Where there's differing views, opinions, values, beliefs, etc., right? That just means that there's autonomy, there's uniqueness, there's individuality, and we all get to accept our own individuality. And so we have to learn that dance. Did I lose anybody yet? So what do you think about your ability to see that it's a choice how you feel versus somebody else choosing for you? Do you feel confident that you might be able to start making some of those adjustments? And then while you're answering or thinking about that or pondering, because That's some big meat and potatoes, right? We've talked about our internal dialogue, having to break it down into different categories and identify where that came from. How deep seated is it? How conditioned of a way is it? Because if you got 30 years of conditioned way of being, it's not going to go away overnight, right? Like we're going to have to do some work of tweaking, adjusting, shifting, changing, shifting, morphing, whatever, right? And then we have to nurture the new way we want to see it, feel it, experience it, and then we get to start conditioning it. Because sometimes, the first way we try to make adjustments, yeah, sometimes it is really hard. Most of the time it's really hard. Like I didn't get here 10 years later because I don't eat, sleep, breathe this stuff every single day. Like it takes dedication. It takes desire. It takes, like a deep commitment to yourself for this next thing, right? So, number 3, I want to ask you this question first. Do you show up the way that you want to see yourself, right? So think about those, you require validation. We need to have a conversation about that, Karen. Right? Because our validation really has got to come from us first. Because we don't want to be reliant on things outside of us to bring us peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, worthiness, validation, any of that, right? So when we show up to things, especially when we're in that state of aggravation or in a negative internal space, like do we show up the way we want to see ourselves experiencing living? Do we show up in times of distress the way that we want to see ourselves showing up? Do we show up in times of, right, whatever that might be? Do we show up the way that we want to see ourselves? So the key is this, is one, you've got to know how you want to see yourself in all situations. And that in and of itself is a task. Because how do you want to see yourself? Do you want to see yourself as somebody that is thoughtful, kind, genuine, right? Authentic? Right? I like to say, I live my life very assertively. And to me, I define assertiveness as an open, honest, genuine, transparent, and authentic way of communicating in all things that I do, right? I like to be seen by others, which is the second half to this, right? Like, how do you want to be received by others? I want to be seen and experienced as somebody who is insightful, thoughtful, kind, caring, polished, calm, cool, collected, right? Like my list could go on, but I have to be operating from my intuitive headspace, which means I take the time no matter what it is, even when, right? Like spousal disagreements, right? Like those happen. And instead of that verbal vomit, that knee-jerk, reactive, impulsive, mean words that could fly out of my mouth, instead of that, however long it takes, I bring that emotion and all of the logic and rationale, and I put it in there like the art of pause, right? Like take a pause. Let me formulate my true response of what I truly want this to look like, feel like, be like for me, for us, in this minute, in this situation, in this issue, whatever it is. And I have to show up the way that I want to be received also. So I have to have this little dance. And I'm pretty good at it. I can do it pretty quick, but it took me quite a while to get there, right? So think about this, right? Like there's no secret that every single one of us at one point in time or another in our life have chosen negative ways to handle stress, overwhelm, and disappointment. Would that be an accurate statement? Yeah. So whether that is I shut down, I isolate, I just say nothing, I choose the path of least resistance. Like I'd love to hear, like, what is that way you choose to handle stress, overwhelm, and disappointment? Maybe not even, right now, but there's a reason we're all here, right? Like, I'd like to choose a better way to handle stress, overwhelm, and disappointment. But if we shut down, if we isolate, if we become a wallflower, if we just conform, if we just give in, if we dig our heels in and fight until, right, until somebody else gives in, right, whatever that is, it's no secret that we've all been in a place where we choose negative ways to handle these situations. But wouldn't it then also be true that on the other side of that, we've all experienced the guilt, the remorse, the shame, that whole mental reel loop, ruminating, wallowing, and languishing in, God, I wish I had better coping skills. I wish I handled that better. Path of least resistance, shut down until I can find myself again. Well, yeah, and that sometimes is great as long as you are doing the find myself again. It's unfortunate that we have that shut down and the path of least resistance in there, right? Because what we want to do is very assertively say, I don't know how I think or feel about this right now. I need time to process. Can we please table this and come back to it in an hour, in 2 hours, in 24 hours, and 48 hours, right? You have to be the gauge of how big it is for you and how much time you might need. But I think the important part is what do I need to do to show up the way that I want to see myself experiencing living in all categories of my life? And what do I need to do to be experienced or received the way that I want to be received by others in all of these different categories of living? So the first thing we have to do is we have to know what our categories are, and we have to observe, and we have to see which ones need modification, adjustment, whatever. And it could be that each category has different pieces that work really well and other pieces that, ooh, God, we need some adjusting. But it could also be that, you know what, this whole category functions really well, but this one functions really poorly, and I need to kind of like look at, what is it, how do I need to make those adjustments? So the first thing is self-observation, and we have to be really specific, because here's the thing: we can't broad brush our life. We can't say that, oh, I handle all situations of stress poorly, because I would venture to say that there are some things that you are known for being great at. Most moms are, right? Somebody gets hurt, like we're boom, right there, right? Like we can handle blood and all the things, right? So we have capabilities, and we are good at dealing with our stress and stressors and overwhelming situations in some cases, but not in all. So we really need to do that observation so that we can actually dig in and find the psychological skill sets, tactics that are going to fill in the gaps so that we can make those shifts. We can nurture, adjust, make some tweaks, and then condition a new way of being. But it's a whole journey, right? So does anybody here, right? Because I am paying attention, and I do know that, we are closing in on our time, and this is, for all intent and purposes, what I wanted to teach you today. So I wanted to ask, because we do have a little bit of time left for some short Q&A. So if there is anything that you'd like to ask me regarding your internal dialogue or that personal relationship or the internal pressure to perform, feel free to drop it into the chat. If there's anything you want to ask me or get clarification on when it comes to removing others' ability to aggravate you, now is the time to drop that in. And if you need clarification on how do I know, right? Like, how do I know what my categories are? How do I know how I want to show up? Whatever it is, like how you see yourself in all situations. If you need that, let's drop it in there so I can answer those questions for you while I'm still here live, right? But while I'm waiting to see if anybody drops anything in, I will say this, right? if any of this is resonating for you, right? Like if you can absolutely resonate with how stress, overwhelm, aggravation, disappointment, right? The big whiteout, the big noisy whiteout. If you can see how any of this is holding you down, I want you to know that the Composure Method is open for open enrollment actually as of Friday, right? Up until now, it's been private invitation only. This is a system that I have been using for 10 years. And in that, it has been producing well over 95% life satisfaction rate where distress tolerance and emotion regulation is concerned. So this is now actually or officially open for, open enrollment. But I am leaving that introductory flexible subscription option open through the rest of the month. Normally I close that option down and we just have, standard options, but I want to leave that open. So think about it this way, right? You might want to think about it, at least having a deeper conversation with me. One, if you have the desire to feel more relaxed and know how to handle your emotional outbursts, if you've tried to solve your issues with stress, overwhelm, disappointment, all of these things that we've been talking about, if you've tried other solutions, right? Like, I don't know, time management, manifestation, all of, meditation, all of those things, but you haven't found a long lasting solution for you yet. If you're, just super over that feeling the need to just isolate, shut down, or lose control and have those outbursts, or just, living in this day to day, the day in, day out, just pressure to perform, and you want to learn proven to be effective coping skills that come from evidence-based practice that will last you a lifetime so that you can gracefully respond to even the most stressful situations, and show up seeing yourself exactly the way that you want to see yourself, and show up exactly how you want to be received by others, right? You can do one of two things. Thank you, Karen. Yes, it is huge. Is there a go-to tip you can share quickly to feel better? Absolutely. So really quick, if you have two ways that you can respond, and then I'm going to jump into Karen's question until we're done, right? Until the end of our session, right? So you have two ways you can respond if this is resonating for you. One, you can send me a DM or just drop in the comments, I want composure, and we'll jump in and get you signed up with the payment option that's going to work best for you, and get your roadmap call booked up so that we can lay our journey out together. Or two, you can send me a direct message, right? If you're just not quite sure, but you want it, right? Like, I'm going to open up some more free strategy sessions for those folks that have not already had a strategy session with me, so we can dive into your situation a little bit deeper, maybe confirm, right? Maybe we don't even need to take the full journey. I don't know, right? Like, so you have that option. So either you can request a strategy session if you have not had one, or you could say, I want composure, and that's that, right? So Karen, the go-to tip that I can share with you right now is probably going to be more than just one, right? So I want you to, number one, I want you to observe your internal dialogue, right? Anytime that it goes to a pressure to perform, I want you to redirect that, right? Like, I want you to redirect it. And if it's an external pressure, like if it's coming from something outside of you, I want you to utilize a stop sign, right? Like, no, That's about that out there. It's not about me, right? Like just stop, right? And then allow yourself to sit with that, right? And find how you want to experience that, whatever that is. How would I prefer, right? So it's about shifting into what you would prefer versus what you're experiencing now. So you have to start teaching yourself what is that preference, because you're choosing to experience it the way you are because it's a conditioned way. So we want to say, no, stop. Like, this isn't working for me. I don't want it anymore. How would I prefer, right? 2, same, right? For when somebody else is aggravating you, like, this is about them, not me. How would I prefer, right? How can I move into acceptance, right? How can I accept that they have a differing view or opinion than me, right? Like, so it's always stop and reflect. Like, how would I prefer to be experiencing this? And then how do I want to show up? So, in all of the strategy sessions that I've done with the folks leading up to moving into the full practice, is I've prompted all of them for the first 5 days to do some self-observation first before we even determine whether it's a right fit, right? I want you to be observing each category. First, you've got to designate all of the categories, right? But looking at each situation as a unique event. Am I showing up the way that I would prefer to see myself? And if it's a no, write down no, but then we got to identify what is the preference, right? So we've got to do this self-observation. If I'm showing up for a situation, once we determine, am I showing up the way I want to? And if I'm not, how would I prefer? But am I also showing up the way that I want to be received? And in that means taking a look at that, right? How can I break this down and say, I'm showing up for myself the way that I want to, but my delivery, right? My finesse needs some work. And that is, how do I want to be received better? How can I make this better? And so we want to do that. So we want to start doing that self-observation so that we can identify where the biggest derailing factors are. Hopefully that helped you, but to feel better, I'm going to give you my life motto. And I give this life motto to everybody, because if I want the ability to accept it as my own life motto, I literally have to offer it to every other being on the planet. And you'll see why, right? So my motto is this. This is my life too. It gets to look, feel, be however I want it to. I get to choose, which means that I get to create my best version of experiencing living every day just the way that I want to, right? So I want nothing more than that for you. Again, if there are no other questions, hopefully we will get in the #replay team, we will get a whole lot more questions, and I will be checking them later on today. First off, I have to go and learn how to download this so that I can save it as a training going on later. I am going to be leaving this replay up for the remainder of the week. I might even be kind enough to leave it up through the weekend, but it will be removed from this group, and it will be saved for free training on another platform. Anyway, thank you so much. And my dog's going to start barking now, but thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. And I hope that you have an amazing day.